we want to talk about today. So the first one is on the number one on affordability. In yellow, we have the cost of $10,000. This matches the budget. And as we move into further on down in the plan, we've got the budget narrative. So I just wanted to point that out to you. And stop me at any time because I'll just keep on rolling. Okay. So affordable equipment. So this is again from the line item in the budget. I wanted to let you know that I reached out to Alan Hinsey to ask whether LCI was providing any devices as part of the FCC Affordable Connectivity Program, and not surprising, he said no. None of the providers in Maine are doing that, but he did want us to know that they include a router with a free lease with the install. So, you know, when you're looking at your installation costs, folks are not having to pay for a router when they're having their fiber connections installed. Arlene sent an email to the librarian, and I wasn't sure whether she heard from her yet. So I have all of this section around the library highlighted because I'm not sure where we are with them. So Arlene, any updates on that?
I did send people an update, but I didn't send it to you. They have, they've invited me to come to their board meeting on Monday. To discuss the what we are proposing. I just want to say that one of the things that's happening is the current director has retired, and they have a new person on, and they also have new people coming into the board. So it's a transitional time right now. They were both the retired director and the board chair were both concerned that we understood their issues with personnel, staffing, and how small the library is. So I did ask them to contact you, but what they want to do first is they want me to say some things about it. I'm a little bit, I sent to Josh information that I just wanted to discuss what components of our plan I should share with them. And they want to decide whether they want to go forward with it based on the fact that they have limited staff and they're a small library. They're a little bit concerned about that. So that's kind of where we are right now. They do, as far as computers for public use, they have 2 laptops and they have 1 iPad. And they also mentioned that they were older. They didn't tell me, you know, what year or anything, and maybe on Monday I can find that out. They have had the Maine State Library early on help them with people coming in to learn about different, like Kindle and different types of technology that way. But they're concerned about the fact that, you know, with their limited staff, what are we asking them for? I did. So right now, what I need is what are the components of our so far plan should I share with them? What makes sense? The digital navigator. I think asking them to volunteer is, I don't think that's a good way to go. Saying that we will be considering a digital navigator and you know what is the role. I also want to let you know that this morning I did talk to, she's a friend of mine, and Judith Jones. She was actually on the digital equity as a civil rights. She was on that committee, And she's also on the Hope Library Board. So we did, in the last meeting, we did talk about maybe even expanding this to other libraries. I don't, I mean, that looks like a bigger thing for us to do, but she seemed interested in it. And she, of course, she has a background in it. So, I mean, that's something I told her we might, she was thinking that might be, having a digital navigator in Hope might be something they might be interested in. So that's about as far as I got. I feel like I'm not well prepared. So I'm a little bit concerned about a meeting where they're going to decide whether or not they want to do this. And that's.
So Arlene, would it be helpful for you if I outlined what exactly your ask is to the library based on this report?
Yeah,
would that be helpful? And then when you receive it, if you want to chat with me about it, I'm very happy to do that with you.
Okay, that would be good because, like I said, this is not, I'll send you. I can just email you, or even I can just do it in chat. I can send you the PFD that I did, and I sent everybody else. But there is some concern about the fact that the limited staff, and like every small library, they're all coming out of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So and trying to figure out what next, and okay.
So let's plan on doing that, and then we can figure out based on your conversation next week. I'll give you all the tools to have that conversation.
Okay.
And then we can follow up. And they probably will have to make some decisions on their side. But
yep.
Let's just, because if the library decides not to go forward and having a digital navigator, then you as a committee need to decide whether to take that completely out of the plan or to rethink who else might host a digital navigator. So
right.
So that's all right on the back on that would be back on the table.
Okay.
Yeah, Steve.
Arlene, what time is that meeting, and would you like another person to join you? Because I could join.
It's at 10 o'clock.
Oh, 10 o'clock in the morning?
10 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, and I can only be there till 10:30. I have other commitments after 10:30. So I told them I'd be there for a half an hour.
Yes, Dave.
Rather than like scaring them with all this work we're asking them to do, couldn't we present this more as, can we use the library as a hub, a meeting place to bring people who are knowledgeable and people who could be digital navigators, to meet up with either, people that don't have their own resources or older people. When I spoke to the adult ed people in Belfast, I mean, they were like, please, come, they're dying to help. So, maybe an easier thing would be to find people either within the community or nearby communities, and then, have some nights where we get people out, but not necessarily try to, stress out the librarians.
Right. I'm just, like I said, I wanted this to be like an initial conversation, and then it kind of turned into, well, we're going to make a decision at this meeting. I'm just, I haven't responded about coming Monday yet. I would like to just say that, please, that this is just an initial, I think what the driving thing is, we have to have this plan completed by the end of December. So,
well, remember too that your plan is a working document, right? And so, even if you sort of have some loose ends when we're ready to call this final, it's really not final because the plan is going to be a working plan going forward.
Yeah.
I think Dave makes a good point that they're a little freaked out, and I don't think they really I understand why they're freaked out. I don't think they need to be freaked out because
Yeah.
we're not really asking them to do any work.
Yeah.
Right.
And that just needs to be kind of clear. But also the fact that adult ed in Belfast wants to help. I mean, we should try that first. You know, the select board, I don't think I think there was the total cost of everything. I think the draft was like $50,000. Obviously, that's going to have to be pared down significantly. It's great to dream that big, but in terms of being realistic. So the fact that Belfast Adult Ed wants to help for free, right? That should be a really massive component of our plan.
It would be good to try some things to see how much pull we got, how many people come in. I'd hate to go, spend $13,000 to train somebody and then have nobody show up. And I think there's some potential that not that many people would show up, but maybe you could be, if we had a couple of, events and people do show up and there is a need, then that's different.
Right. Then we can staff up.
I can attend that. If you want another person, Arlene, I can attend from 10 to 10:45.
Pardon?
I can attend from 10 to 10:45 on Monday morning.
You can come at 10:45?
Until 10:45.
Okay.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
That's
And
gonna.
I agree totally with David that we're not really asking them to commit a lot. It's more than anything, it's the
Right.
space.
What I wanted to do is just information rather than make a commitment. And like I said, I think Cindy was a little bit more that way. And then, the communication I got was, we're going to make a decision about it. And I'm not sure. I think that's a little premature. But so Steve, you'd like to come to it to speak to them as well?
I will be there with you.
Okay, great. Okay.
And I'll include you in that email, Steve, so that you both have some quick and easy things to talk about without it feeling like it's overwhelming and we want the library to do everything, but that's not really what you're looking at. You're looking at to use the library as a hub and as a resource.
Right.
You can go.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Great. Let's we'll continue on here. In the hang on, where we go. Okay, so we also talked about hotspots in the possibly at the town wharf and in Lincolnville. The discussion, if you decide to go forward with that, you'll want to have a discussion with LCI to see if they will pay for the backhaul for that as a donated service. So that's something that you want to consider because the equipment, this is equipment, and this is rough. So you still need to check with who's ever going to do this work. These are the figures that I use from Axiom of what it costs to put these access points or Wi-Fi hotspots in downtown areas. So the cost of equipment and then and then the maintenance for the second year, you have two different prices, but these are rough. These are just estimates. So I just wanted to point that out to all of you.
If I could ask, are there any beach businesses that might want to who might have Wi-Fi already, who might want to just open it up and we can advertise it as publicly available Wi-Fi?
Can I say something?
Okay, go ahead, Jordan.
Oh, just very quickly, because we just touched on two things that were kind of the same thing. I'm a member of the Lincolnville Business Group. So if you guys want me to bring questions to them regarding stuff like this, I'm more than happy to do it because it's a good way to kind of get your finger on the pulse of that stuff, especially where we're talking about in part of this about promoting businesses and their websites and other things. So I just wanted to say that real quickly. Sorry.
Yeah, that'd be great if you could reach out and see what they say. I would imagine, Susan, what's being proposed here, community Wi-Fi hotspots. Those routers are more powerful, I would assume, and I don't know if there's if it's a mesh network, but something that has more would cover a wider area than a hotspot in a restaurant.
That is true. So depending, it's all dependent on geography and what's in the way. But yes, that is the point. That's the focus of it, is that you have public access to Wi-Fi, and you can have multiple people on. That's why it's important on the backhaul side of it, because what you don't want to do is invest in the equipment for a Wi-Fi network, and then you don't have sufficient backhaul, so everybody gets on and they get stuck and they get thrown off, and then you have a bad experience, and you don't want them talking about you like that this system doesn't work. So backhaul is going to matter on a system like this.
Yeah.
And Jordan, what's the name of the business group? The business group?
Literally the Lincolnville Business Group.
The Lincolnville is.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're in the process of revamping our website and kind of things too. So it's serendipitous that this is all happening at one time. I think it's really, really good.
Okay. So do you want me to keep both these Wi-Fi hotspots in the plan and in the budget for at least at this point?
I love the idea of doing this, but I love the idea of doing it with the business group driving this and paying for most of it. Like maybe the town doing a little bit.
Hey, Jordan, we're getting an echo. Your speakers are picking up your microphone's picking up your speakers. Okay, cool.
But I'm not very excited about going to the selectmen to say, let's spend $9,500 to, just benefit one section of town.
I wouldn't make this a town. I wouldn't go to the town for this money. There are resources. So Bangor Savings.
I thought this was an ask of the town.
Yeah, Bangor Savings Bank, their philanthropy side of it, paid for, 7 or 8 community hotspots across the state of Maine.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just speaking to.
I have a question. So, and forgive me if this is in there somewhere, but I didn't see it. These hotspots, do we have a plan to make them power outage proof so that it can be used by the community when, as a whole, nobody has power, but we really need to be able to use the internet for emergencies and other things?
That is not built into the budget because you would need, you need a couple different things. You need generator power, and you'd also need to be sure that the connection coming in from LCI also had backup power in case of an outage.
My understanding is that LCI has multiple generators, so if the grid goes down, you would continue to have internet. I mean, I love the idea that the hotspots would be running. It just seems like a huge expense at the beach. Does a library have a generator? Do we know?
I don't.
Does anyone know? Okay. Yeah, Steve?
I was just going to say, I've been in a side conversation with some folks at the First, and I think they would be very interested, as she mentioned Bangor Savings, if you think about it, they would be very interested in a project regarding.
Yeah.
So let's note that in the plan that this would be raised through those types of sources.
Right, and when you have a sponsor, so think about when you go to a hotel and you log on and welcome to the Marriott, click here to accept for acceptable terms. Well, the same thing happens when you have a sponsor. You have a splash page when you log on to that Wi-Fi network, and the splash page can say, welcome to free Wi-Fi, Lincolnville free Wi-Fi, sponsored by the First. Right, and then there's links to their website, so it's great advertisement for for any organization that's sponsoring and paying for those sites.
Great, Stephen.
Just as a procedural matter, as we go through this, Susan, I think one of the deliverables at the end of the conversation that we want is a budget that we can show to the select board. So probably there is a list of things that we're asking them for, and then there's a separate budget list of things that we're saying we're going to go elsewhere to try to get, so that they are aware that we are not relying on them solely for this, and also so that we have like an actual number. I mean, I went through your spreadsheet and, you know, it looked to me like around a $52,000 total budget, but not all of those are by any means things we would be asking them for. So I think it's important to have, you know, a kind of short list of what we really want, and then a separate list of, just for your information, we're also looking at these additional items and funding for them, so that they have a full picture of, you know, what we're asking.
So in the budget, what would be really helpful, and I'll send it back around again, the spreadsheet. If someone could mark up what your thoughts are for town versus private philanthropy, that then I can break the budget into two and do just as you're saying, Stephen. Just take, this is, you know, what we're asking for the town. Here is the other items that we are going to, you know, do some outside of the town ask. That makes sense?
It does, although I'm just thinking, you know, if I were to do that myself, I would probably go back to you and say, are there, like we were just talking, what triggered this in my mind was the conversation we're having right now about getting a bank, you know, to finance a hotspot. What's the realm of the possible? If that's the sort of thing that's been done in other places, then that's a good thing to know, and that's something we could do. If typically, in your experience, I mean, I'm making this up, you know, the subsidy is what comes from the town, you know, either the connection subsidy or the monthly fee subsidy. If that typically is what comes from the town, then I'd want to put that on the town side of the ledger. So I mean, yes, we definitely can go through this, and you know, there wasn't, I mean, it's not such a huge document. When I went through and just totaled it up, it's you know, there were like 7 or 8 you know, entries, so we could parse those. But I think it's important for us to come up with an actual ballpark number.
If I was going to choose,
Talk about that now, or do you want
I was going to suggest we just look at those items as we go. We can back up to the ones that were before hotspots and then continue from there.
yeah,
Yeah, we can do that.
and I think, you know, as you're saying that, and I'm thinking sort of overall, because the town is only going to, it's going to be a reach to get the town to pay for this, any of it, right? And so what would, the things that are the most important, I think, and this is your decision, but I think that, and what I think would be a town could sort of swallow. One is the installation cost, and the second one is the public awareness campaign.
Yeah, that's
Everything
right.
else in the middle, you can find funds through other sources to get to.
Yeah.
Can I just want to, before we leave hotspots, just because the library and the and Center General have access, I think we want to include those as a possible location for sponsorship, just because we can make it a lot prettier and work on the backhaul and everything else. I just wanted to make sure we don't lose that.
But I had basically written down the same thing that Susan just said, that if we asked for the 10,000 for the installation, we had the awareness, and then we could use that to tell people about events when we have, you know, community services or some other experts coming in. And we have a private effort for the hotspots in the 2 ends of town. That's a pretty good start for next year. Is there more monies we need for Susan or other things that we have to ask for now, or is that? Because buying hardware, I don't think I'm too excited about buying hardware yet for people at the library.
So just to add numbers to that, if we all look at the spreadsheet, so that's in Susan's draft. That is 10,000 for the broadband installation benefit, and it's 4,150 for the public awareness campaign, right? That's about 14,200. Those are the things that so far we identified as going to the town to ask for. Is that right?
Yep.
And just your public awareness. So I built into the budget the standard cost of postage, but the town might have a bulk rate, so it actually could be just a little bit less than that.
They do. It would be substantially less.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was $3,200. That was
Yeah.
most of this. It was postage.
If one of you could just send me that, whatever the bulk postage rate is, I'll rework that budget too.
I will work on that.
Great.
And let me just ask you, as we're going through this, Susan, we have a TBD for the digital skills training pilot project. Is that something that we can get funded outside through a grant?
Oh, sure. Yeah, depending on what you want to do with this. But there's also some things that, can happen without any cost, so remember that all of the classes through NDEC are free, right? So you don't have to pay for those, right? It's all going to be around public awareness. If we work with, and it sounds like Belfast Adult Education is the adult education that makes the most sense for this plan. Yeah. So
Yeah.
There's two different options. The five-town CSD also, they have like 7 different courses. They weren't quite as focused as much as Belfast was on what we're talking about. So you have two buckets to go to.
okay.
But when I talked to them, they didn't say they would come over here, but they'd said, we'd love to have you come take our courses, and that's what, we have funding for it and we're ready.
I talked to Camden as well, the CSD, and they said the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you had one of the adult education programs also promoting those classes, all of those services are free. So you're not paying for anything. The only time anything becomes billable with us is if they're closed classes. The town says, oh, we only want people from Lincolnville in our classes. Well, then it's going to be a billable class. As long as it's open to the public, no problem. As long as we have funding, we'll continue to provide those classes for free. So it to be determined, if it's something specific that becomes that someone needs a class that they need, but I would leave that as a TBD, because I think that for your purposes, when you're starting out, you can utilize the classes that are available either through the adult ed program or through NDEC.
Getting the people we're talking about to the drive to Belfast at night or to Rockport at night would be tough.
Well, that's where, this is where if you could get the library, right? If you could have the class at the library and Belfast Adult Ed was sponsoring it, you could have those classes in Lincolnville, working with Belfast Adult Education. Which one of you chatted with Belfast?
I did.
So it would be great if you could connect me to the adult ed director over there, because we could start having some conversations about what makes sense. I believe that we may have at one point in the NDEC history worked with Belfast Adult Ed, but it may have been several years ago.
Yeah. I'll send you that. And their catalog said that they had gotten funding,
Are we, may I just ask, are we, the digital navigator, are we not exploring that at this point?
I'm suggesting that we put that off and see if we can do it with the adult ed resources this year.
I don't see the harm in putting that in the budget. I mean, we can recommend that the plan is implemented in varying stages. Yeah. So I wouldn't want to take it out of the budget.
Right.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't rule out actually mentioning it to the library, because it could mean that it's an additional resource at the library that is funded by somebody else, not themselves.
Right. And, I think, Steve, this, when we go there to speak with them, just finessing it in a way of that we're looking to have more use for their facilities, but we don't necessarily need them for personnel. I think that would be an important point because, and that, they very much started, they had a lot of courses through the Maine State Library on technology originally. The other thing I just want to mention, when we're looking at all this and the population, the people who we're looking at, brochures, surveys, all of those kinds of things. And when I spoke to my friend this morning, I talked to her about, is there another way to have a more personal way for people to respond to their, the UCC Church does a lot of outreach for people, especially during the holidays. And how else can we, for the people who don't have the technology or the finances for this, how we can reach them, because they may not respond to a survey and they may not respond to a brochure. So that's just something else I've been, I was kicking around this morning about how other ways we can reach people who don't respond to those kinds of things.
So I think that's where volunteers can be really helpful, and also organizations like the church. If there's a food pantry, like the food pantry, to get that word out to people who may not be online or may not be in a place where they get those brochures. So I think that figuring out who's providing those service industry work in Lincolnville and connecting with them about the digital equity plan, it could be really useful.
Well, and related to this, I still don't want to let go of the bee in my bonnet about the teach-in where we get people signed up for the broadband benefit.
Mm-hmm.
I still think that when you're actually offering people a significant financial benefit and helping them, and I see that as something I would love for us, maybe it's part of the public awareness campaign, but to me it's critical in increasing our take rate and in actually achieving our objective of getting, actual people to sign up who are not now served. And I think if we do a session like that, then it's probably not going to be in the library. It's probably going to be like at the school, because it's going to be more people. You'd have a presentation, and then you'd have some volunteers sitting at a table with laptops, helping people actually enroll right then and there. Mm-hmm. And I think we would get a lot of bang for our buck. And I don't know, Susan, where in the plan, and I don't know that that's necessarily hugely expensive. You could get the presentation to be made by a volunteer like you or someone from NDC. You could get the signups to be done by volunteers like people like us, who would maybe have a training where we'd look at the form, and how hard can that be? And we would sit there, like you help people enroll for FEMA benefits after the hurricane. It sounds simple, but for a lot of people, it's the gating item.
Right.
And then if you tell them, by the way, this is worth more than $1,000 a year to you, and it's free, and all you have to do is ask for it, and we're here to help you ask for it. What's wrong with that picture? Yeah,
no, I think that's a great example of it. We can provide that the class on how to apply for the benefit. We could do the step before and teach the volunteers who are actually going to be helping folks do this work. So it's a sort of a two-step process. And I think that is exactly, and if someone doesn't want to sit with you and talk about their income, You can refer, they can go online, or you can refer them right back to NDEC for assistance.
Yeah, I could see two different, I mean, church groups, when they put out food and have lunch and get people in, that would lead into one event. And then if you had something at the school that, was kind of targeted towards maybe a different section of people we're trying to get to, different, more through school connections, and so you could hit people different ways.
Right, and I would see doing it, relatively early in the evening, so it's not a late thing. It's after school, but like 5 o'clock or something like that, where people feel comfortable. Everybody in town obviously knows where the school is. The school, I assume, I don't know, but we could talk to the principal or whoever about getting a room, whether it's the auditorium or the cafeteria or some space, the gym where voting is, some space that's big enough to have people come and sit.
Yeah.
And I think we should figure out where in the chronology of our rollout would this happen, all of which we would explain to the select board, by the way. So the select board would be seeing a full plan with the sequence of steps, with the budget that goes with it. So you've got the whole picture.
I did reach out with I had dinner with the principal Saturday night, but I forgot to talk to him about this.
Ah, come on, Dave.
But today I reached out to him, described what we were doing, showed him the plan, said it was initial, and so I am going to track him down. I just haven't yet.
So you could ask that question.
He'll be open to it.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, well, and I will also write up the steps around this too, so that we've got a more concrete plan that, again, you're going to, this is a no cost, right? Other than the public awareness piece to get people into the classes. So, if you can get a half a dozen volunteers to help, that's a bonus.
Michael, were you going to say something?
Yeah, we're talking about the ACP or the Lincolnville subsidy, or I suppose both ultimately.
In this case, it's the ACP.
Okay. I wasn't sure where the $1,000 a year came from. So, because that's $30, right?
30 times 12.
It's less than 1,000, Stephen.
What?
And just one thing, in the document a lot, it says Board of Selectmen. Is the right language now Select Board, just as a?
Yes, it is. It's now Lincolnville Select Board.
I'll make those changes.
Great.
Okay, and then we also talked about whether to do a pilot program for telemedicine, but one of you are going to reach out to Penn Bay to see if there might be some interest in partnering. Anywhere with that?
Yeah, I guess I sent that to everyone else here, right?
Yeah, I saw Jay's.
What Jay said. So
They didn't have any luck, right?
basically he said I didn't have a whole lot of luck. I could, well, I'll just send it to you, but
Okay.
So he didn't get anything specific, really.
Are we inclined to take this piece out of the plan?
I'd like
We
to
don't
see.
really have anything yet other than just a placeholder.
I'd want to keep it in,
Okay,
even though we don't have anything in.
okay.
How do other members feel about telemedicine?
I have a
Could
question.
be big.
I have a question, Susan. In your experience in other places, which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Do you go to like Penn Bay Medical Center and talk to them first and find out what their capacity is for incoming? Or is it done in some other way, like through, association of physicians or, family physicians? I mean, how do we goose the use of the internet for telemedicine for our neighbors?
So a lot of our work has been with Maine General, and Maine General really, really wants telemedicine to all of their physician practices, satellites. They've also are in a position where they raise funds to get tablets to give to the patients so that they can connect to telehealth visits. So there's, but Maine General is a big organization. They have people devoted to this. It's a little bit different on local levels when you may have a physician or medical practice. They don't really have the capacity to add another whole program. How are they going to do that? But you might have a champion within Lincolnville that would be interested in doing that, in one of the medical practices there. So that's a local decision. Sometimes it's driven by the patient, right? Because the patient wants to participate in telehealth visits, and so they sort of push their providers along the way. A lot of that theory has changed though since the pandemic, where pretty much all practices had to adopt some level of telemedicine, with sort of kicking and screaming in many practices, but it was either that or they couldn't see their patient. So I don't know if there's physician groups or medical groups besides Penn Bay in Lincolnville, or even a private practice, but it may be worth reaching out to them. We can put a section in here on telemedicine. You could, one of the uses of the budget for tablets could be used for telemedicine. So you could sort of focus in that we want to raise funds for older adults in Lincolnville so that they can participate in telehealth visit and connect to family and friends. I mean, that's sort of one way to do it. But I'd be interested in hearing, what you know about the healthcare community within the Lincolnville, within the town of Lincolnville.
Okay. Any other thoughts about that?
I think in the long run, it's probably more education, like what we're already talking about here. And it's, can you hold and just reading a few things about what's happened in some other communities around the country of holding that educational session to let them know about availability of tablets and stuff and how to connect. And like, I was just dealing with it with my mother. She's totally on main care at this point, but main care lets her spend the money on a tablet if she wants, and at no penalty to her. And now she can talk to the doctor with that. But they all need education on it.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll work on a paragraph around this and see if we can get it integrated and have you take a look at it and see what you think. How about that?
That sounds good.
Okay. I know you talked to the high school principal, but one of the questions was, could students be recruited as volunteers? Again, if you have students as volunteers, you need to have someone who is overseeing those volunteers. So it may still be a question for the principal whether or not that might be a program they might be interested in doing.
Again, we're a K-8 school, so.
Oh, that's right. That's right. So I'm going to take this out then, because I don't think that makes any sense.
We could go to
Say that again.
We could ask that question to because at dinner Saturday night, also, Deb Lieber was there, who's the stand-in superintendent of the CSD. So we could go to the high school to ask that if there's any link. So are you suggesting like a high school age kid who's a tech savvy person would be one of the presenter, trainer type people?
They could, or they could even do some one-on-one in a public place, always in a public place.
Be a great senior project.
Oh, it's a great senior project. I agree.
I think most kids have to do a certain amount of volunteer hours now before they graduate anyway.
Yeah.
We always have plenty of students who are attending, CHRHS from Lincolnville. So.
Well, why don't we just leave this in? It's in the plan. It's something you may develop or not, depending on what your resources are. Okay. We talked about volunteer program at Lincolnville Library. We may be looking at other volunteers. I'm going to write a section on volunteers around the ACP program. We talked about the digital navigator, so we'll have that as a potential. It may be, that depending on what happens with this conversation that Steve and Arlene have on Monday, we may look at Belfast Adult Ed as perhaps the home of a digital navigator. Or, if you think that the town is interested in having someone at their office as a digital navigator, that's another whole discussion. Okay, we talked about the public awareness and we're going to get the bulk rate. We talked about the telehealth. We know it's not going to be Penn Bay. And then, so the broadband budget, I don't know, this was new for you this week. So I didn't know if you had any thoughts or questions around that other than to break it into those two different sections under the, for town ask versus other ask.
Before, on the telemedicine, I think Jay said he hadn't gotten anywhere, not that it was impossible. Is that,
Oh,
I
okay.
was reading that? Somebody else can tell me.
You hadn't gotten through.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I misunderstood you.
But like you
Okay.
say, they're huge organizations, so that is a long-term ask.
Yeah.
So he'll keep trying.
But if they're a huge organization, they may have a telehealth department. So, most of the hospitals right now are medical facilities. They have somebody dedicated for telehealth. So if you can connect with the right person, maybe you'll get some traction with it.
Right, and Penn Bay is part of Maine Health. In fact, the Waldo Hospital, the Belfast Hospital, and the Camden Rockport Hospital are part of Maine Health, so it's even bigger than Maine General.
So, I had I thought I might have a contact at Maine Health. She actually is a member of the Connect Maine Authority, Jasmine Bishop, but she's no longer with them. She's moved someplace else. But I can reach out to her to ask her about Penn Bay and whether she might have a contact. I'm happy to do that.
Yeah.
All right. And okay, then we'll go back to the narrative on the budget. Any questions, anything you want changed on this?
When you have strategy 1, whole classes in Lincolnville to learn how to apply for that could either be, say, the school
That
or
could be
the
anywhere.
library.
Mhm.
Okay,
That could be anywhere.
that could be anywhere.
Yep.
But it would have to have internet.
Yes.
Yeah.
You need to have internet connectivity.
Right.
So go back to your church, Arlene. If the church has internet and they wanted to host a class, the church could host a class on how to apply for the ACP.
So on our budget, are we keeping the equipment in the budget, but just saying that that's money's to be raised someplace else other than town? Or are we taking it out?
Now, which equipment specifically are you talking
Well,
about?
the second category that Susan has is the affordable equipment, tablets, laptops. We're not asking the town for those monies. Is that correct?
Well, let's have that discussion right now.
Yeah.
What do you want, Dave? What do you think is the best course? Should we ask the town or to pay for it, or?
No, I try to, if there are grants or resources outside of the town, I would put it in that bucket.
Okay. What does the rest of the committee think?
I agree with keeping it out. I want to keep a smaller number to the town. I mean, Susan, it sounds like there's lots of money everywhere for grants. Now, that can't be too realistic, but is there actually more than we think there is, or?
Well, sure, you've got the banks, you have the foundations. Maine Community Foundation will have their grant open in February. We do in February. That's $10,000. So if the little $5,000, $10,000 grants can get you pretty far in this budget.
Okay, so unless there's any opposition from the committee, why don't we, under affordable equipment, tablet budget with Wi-Fi and laptop desktop budget, let's put that all under to be raised elsewhere.
And then
And the hotspots too.
And the hotspots, yeah. So one of the questions I had, and I apologize if you've told me this before, are there any newsletters that go out from in the town, whether from the town or other community organizations?
No physical ones. Of course, we've got the online newspapers. We have the physical Camden Herald newspaper. We have a Lincolnville. We have a Google group that is very active, as well as a Facebook group that a lot of the people in Lincolnville are a part of.
Okay, I'll add the Google group in.
Okay.
And Susan, I just wanted to, on telehealth, Waldo is also part of Maine Health, Waldo County Hospital in Belfast, and they might be eager to have a bigger footprint. And so when you talk to your person, contacts there would be great too.
Okay, will do.
So the next, that navigator, we're leaving that in, but where are we putting that? We're not asking the town for it, but are we just saying we're going to raise that, or
Maybe a future year.
a future?
Yeah, so we the hotspots for good. That's the digital skills pilot information. It's under the community advocates.
Jordan, go ahead.
Navigators.
Well, I just was going to suggest, while going through this part and parcel and deciding what we're going to put in the budget to ask the town and what we're going to put for private, I think it might be fruitful for us to come up with a number that we feel comfortable with going to the town, so that we can just put everything else in the pile of private. Because I know, in my opinion, I think it's going to be very hard to get a majority of the select board to approve any of this funding, just from experience. So I think it would behoove us to really decide what is a realistic number that we can successfully go to the select board with for fundage, and then everything else we can just put into fundraising, grants, and other stuff. I don't know if that sounds extreme, but does that make sense to anyone else?
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
It sounds like so what's the number that we feel comfortable going with in total to the select board?
Well, we don't know yet.
That's what I was suggesting, that we discuss that and say, out of the $51,000, do we feel comfortable with a $10,000 budget going to the select board, a $5,000 budget?
It was the 10,000 plus the 4,200, which is way over because that presumed 3,200 for postage. So it's a lot closer to somewhere around $12,000, $10,000 to $12,000. That's what we're talking about as the ask of the town. And then we would have this separate sheet that is the budget items we're going elsewhere to look for, which is a bigger number than that, but which we're letting them know we're doing. So we're asking them for $10,000 to $12,000.
And you're getting that number from the installation benefit and the awareness campaign. Okay.
Yeah.
Whatever that math is.
I've been trying to get to it from not looking at them directly, just kind of thinking of it holistically. 15 is the number I'm kind of thinking of.
Okay.
Yeah. You may have some things come up during the year, that Belfast will come out, but they want us to pay gas, whatever comes up. It'll be a couple $100 and something.
So can we all say perhaps up to 15,000, sort of what we're looking at?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. And I wanted to add that 10,000 for installation is sort of a sweetener for the LCI negotiation. So when we present it to the select board, we should point that out.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I need to inform people that when I looked up Lincolnville Telephone Company and tried to, every time we have a meeting, I go and try to sign up in the meeting to see what comes up. The installation fee looks like let me just do it right now, but I think it's more than $100 now.
Yeah, that's what it is.
So
Dependent on you have to add.
Like a
for
200
distance,
foot
right?
connection is 100 feet, I believe.
So I'm looking right now. I think they've changed something, everyone. This is exciting.
They finally posted their new plans.
So breaking news for me, at least. that premier service, no phone required for Lincolnville. A 100 megabits up and down, $89, optional landline. So that's cool. So that's live right now.
I think they put it up this weekend.
This weekend. I'm just trying to see if the installation fee $100. Okay, so never mind.
Great. So I have a question then, go back to on the budget. Once I have the correct bulk postage rate, do you want me to work on that public awareness campaign so it becomes closer to $5,000?
Well, yeah, because that's what we're saying. That would include this thing at the school. It might include, and frankly, I think we should budget for more than one session. So we might do one, early in the game, and then 6 or 9 months later, as it starts to spread and more people are doing it, we might want to do it again. And that is another one of those things, by the way, whoever said it, that would be a part of our negotiation with LCI, that we're very mindful that the take rate is essential and central to making all of this work. And so the town, on its own dime and with its own effort, is going to be doing this educational outreach, which, by the way, LCI could, would, should be invited to participate in as a presenter and to be there. So we do it together. But getting people signed up for the $30 a month benefit should be something they like. But I think we should have that. Like Steve Hand was saying, I think we should have, a max number that comes in around 15. So I think if we can, put in a couple of these community awareness teach-ins, that would be good.
Yeah.
And maybe reference training, Susan. So if we did have to pay somebody to come out to one of those, a technical person, we'd have some money to do that.
Okay, can do that.
Great.
Great.
Susan, one thing I just want to say, you have on the screen on number 3, it's Lincolnville Community Library, not Memorial.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks for that correction. I want to change that in other places
If
too.
somebody wants to make a naming gift, it could be the Steve Hand.
Yeah, right. No.
All right, and then I think we're set. We've talked about the public awareness campaign, so we're going to make some changes there. This is just the spreadsheet that I sent off, so I'm going to divide that into 2 sections.
Okay.
And other than that, I think that's about it that I've got.
Great.
Awesome.
Any questions for Susan?
I'm just noticing on the screen there, under action plan, it references the town of Bremen.
Oh, well, let's get rid of that.
Other resources available in Bremen.
All right, we'll take care of that. Sorry about that.
You have a Lincolnville Memorial Library.
Yeah, I'm going to change all that. Oh, there is one other thing I wanted to point out too. I talked about it in the email. So I changed this Appendix C to reflect the $100 installation fee.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so just an FYI, there's been some change there.
Okay, good.
Do you really think we'll get 100 people to take up within a year? So is that a good number for a year, the 10,000?
Yeah, I think that your 100, you may not have 100. And I think that as you're negotiating with the town over this, that you leave enough wiggle room that if you do not use this, if you do not use all the funds for installation, can you use it for other digital inclusion efforts?
Yeah.
Oh, Jordan, I think did you want to say something? I could see you talking.
No, that's all right.
Anything else for Susan? Okay, great. So, yeah, Arlene.
I just want to, so Susan, you're going to send Steve and I the information regarding how we should proceed with the library.
Yes, and it would be helpful if Steve would just shoot me an email with his email address so that I can make sure I've got the right person.
Okay.
Great. Well, while you're still here, should we schedule? Well, first of all, I'm trying to think how much more you need from us.
I think that we just need to wrap up these final pieces. I'll put it in an email of where we're at and what we need to do to get to the point where we can, sort of close the book on this. So, but I think that if you want to schedule a meeting a couple weeks out, hopefully we'll have all the answers by then.
Yeah.
And we'll know where we are with the library. Maybe I've had some conversations with the adult ed program, and we'll have, and maybe we'll be just that much closer to a final report in a couple of weeks.
Great. So do we want to schedule a meeting for Thursday, December 1st at 6 p.m.? How does that work for everyone?
Works for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
I want to be on a road trip, but I probably will be able to attend remotely.
Okay.
I'll be on my way back from Salt Lake City.
Oh, nice. Make sure works for me. Jordan, does that work for you?
Yeah, I think I'll be able to make it to the meeting.
Okay. Michael?
Yep, that's good.
Okay.
Okay, great. So let's plan for that.
Great.
Thursday, December 1st at 6 p.m.
Wonderful. All right.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Susan.
You're very welcome. Everyone have a great Thanksgiving.
Okay.
You
Cheers,
too.
thanks, Susan.
See you in December.
You too, Susan.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay, so action items. So I'm gonna talk with David and get the bulk postage rate. You're gonna connect adult ed with Susan. Okay.
I'll follow up with the principal.
Principal. Okay. Any other action items?
Arlene and I are going to the
Right.
Lincolnville
On Monday. Okay.
Community Library.
Okay. Good. Anything else?
I guess I'm going to talk to the Lincolnville business group about
Right.
what's going on, and the next meeting is it's like a holiday party, so it'll be after our next meeting. But so maybe if we can collect some things, but I'll talk to them about it, and they're all really open and super they're really nice to work with. So
Great. Cool. Okay. So while we're all here, I just want to get the hot take of everyone that LCI is now offering $90 a month service with no phone, no contract, and it's 100 megabit symmetrical as of right now. So hot takes from the committee.
I have to go sign up, so I really can't stay in.
I'm throwing my phone out the window tonight.
Steve,
until you figure out it's exactly the same thing as before, just packaged differently.
Yeah, I mean, are they negotiating against themselves? I mean, what? So the next thing we'll see on the website is they're going to provide service to anybody in Lincolnville who asks for it, right? And then we're done without even having done anything. Although one could argue that $90 a month is not as affordable as we want it to be.
Well, the problem is that's the average price, and nobody's average. So the actual price is going to change based on each individual residence.
The installation, but they're saying 89.
Oh, right.
When I said 90, it's the 89.95.
No, the $89 is what I pay. And that's been the same price now for,
No, but you'll no longer have to pay for a phone line.
And it's 100 by 100. And it's 100 by 100.
I think that's kind of a double-edged sword, to be honest. I mean, before you paid around this much to get internet and phone, and so now you're paying as much to just get internet. So it's, you know,
But no one wants the
I mean,
phone.
no one wants the phone. No, a lot of people don't want it, but I'll tell you where I am. I am very happy to have a landline because I use Wi-Fi for my, you know, to be able to use my cell phone. So it's nice to have the option. And I know nobody should be forced into it. I'm very, you know, prescient about that. But it seems to me, it's just funny to see, like, you know, you used to get two things for one, and now it's the same price and you get less. So it's,
Okay, so I agree. I'm at 89.95, but a slower speed and not symmetrical. And yeah, I actually use the landline as well. So I was
So you
kidding.
get 100 by 100, so it's going symmetrical.
Yeah.
It's easy to be facetious, but I think they've made a lot of ground. It's not as inexpensive as we would like it to be.
Yeah.
But to give up no contract, which is one of the things I hated.
Mhm.
I don't want the phone. And they have 100 by 100.
Yeah, I mean, it's 3 wins, and we didn't have to. We didn't have to. Well, maybe the pressure of broadband committee over many years and the survey did something.
It's other communities.
Wait, did you see there's also a 1 gigabit up and down for $115 a month?
Yeah, they've never offered that before. So
Right.
And these
I
are
think
all symmetrical, yeah.
this is a small win, and we should celebrate it, I think. It's something, because not being symmetrical is something that our committee's complained about for good reason, and the contract and the phone line. So, and so now we don't have to fight over these things, and we can push even, you know, further.
Yes, exactly. That's what I mean. They negotiate against themselves on this.
Right. That's great.
So where do things stand with LCI?
We are still waiting to hear from them.
They're doing engineering.
Town, yeah.
The way it was left is they had engineering to do to determine what the costs to build out to all the remaining unserved locations or underserved, or however you want to term it, non-fiber locations in Lincolnville are. And from there, we can look at one of the funding programs to determine what proposal LCI can submit for with Lincolnville as a partner.
Yeah, but, and also they're I'm assuming they're still working on applications with other towns for this first round of funding. So that's their priority right now.
February round of applications.
Yeah, so there's it makes sense they're not rushing to get back to us when they're trying to finish this first round of applications. But I think they had to offer symmetrical to apply for some of these new grants. So
yes, that's an MCA requirement.
okay, that one, did they have to offer
Okay.
no contracts, or? I know about the symmetrical, but I don't know about the contracts or the phone line, if they had to get rid of that too. But
well, there are FCC recommendations that came through last year that were trying to put an end to those practices. So definitely commend LCI for making self-preserving decisions.
yeah. Obviously $90, as you said, it's still the most expensive fiber plan at the slowest speed in the nation, I would argue, unless someone can show me something slower at a more expensive price. $90.
Places don't have it.
Well, if they offer fiber, I mean.
Right. I love what we have. I mean, at Tilson over in Vermont, I was just there.
Yeah.
500 by 500 is 69.
Oh,
So, wish we had that.
that's how affordable it can be.
Yeah.
All right. Well, any other non-agenda items that the committee wishes to discuss? We have an opening on the broadband committee. So if they're, now granted, we're getting near the end of our work, but if anyone knows a community member who would love to jump in and contribute, then let us know.
The plan is for us to wrap up by end of the year.
Oh, right, that wasn't in our last packet. The hope is to extend our charge to December 27th. So that be the end of our charge, and so that's the last select board meeting of the year, and so we would hopefully present at that meeting, and then after that have a new charge where we implement the plan. Yeah, for 2023. Yeah. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
Second.
Motion moved by Steve, seconded by Steven. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Jordan?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Wayne?
Yes.
Steve?
yes.
Steven?
Yes.
And I vote yes. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks,
See you
everybody.
next meeting.
Yeah.